Okay, so I just wanted to start today with a little bit of a review of what we did last week before break. The first thing that we did was we talked about how we can expand and add using sigma notation by taking all of the step numbers from the lower bound, which is this number right here, to the upper bound, which is this number right here. Put all those numbers in for n right there, see what we get out, and then add them together using our calculator. And so let's just model that right here. First, I'm going to start with my lower bound, and I'm going to write 3 plus 7 times 2 minus 1, because 2 is the lower bound. I'm going to go up by 1, and I'm going to do 3 plus 7 times 3 minus 1, 3 plus 7 times 4 minus 1, 3 plus 7 times 5 minus 1. And then, since the last one is the upper bound, we'll write that. And then we're done because this is now the same as this, and so that means that I'm done. So then I have to go through each of these, figure out what they're worth, and then add them together. So first do the 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 times 7 is 7. 7 times plus 3, is 10. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 plus 3 is 17. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 21 plus 3 is 24. We can see now that the rule here is add 7. And so then I can conclude that my answers will be 31 and 38 here. Then I need to take all of these and add them together. So you can pull your calculator out and do that. I'm going to do that with my calculator. 10 plus 17 plus 24 plus 31 plus 38. And you get 120. So your answer is 120 here. 120. There it is. Okay. This one down here says we need to use the formula, and so we can set that up. So n is the number of terms that you're adding. You can usually kind of just think about it as the upper bound of the series because our lower bound is usually going to be 1. Just make sure that the lower bound is 1, but if it is, then you can look at the upper bound, and that's how many terms you're going to add. So n is 28 here. A1 is what happens when you put the first term in, and you see what you get out. So 95 minus 7 times 1 minus 1. Well, 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 times 7 is 0, so then I get 95. So A1 is 95. AN is what happens when you put 28 in here. So 95 minus 7 times 28 minus 1. So 28 minus 1 is 27. 27 times 7 is 189. 95 minus 189 is negative 94. So then, I put these things into this formula here. What do I get out? Well, 95 plus negative 94 is 1. 1 times 28 is 28. 28 divided by 2 is, 28 divided by 2 is 14. So my answer here is 14. So that's a little review for you on what we did last week. So the whole deal with today is that we can do all of this same stuff with geometric sequences, geometric series. So all of this is the same process. It's just that now we have a multiplying rule inside the sigma notation. So we're going to start by expanding and adding. And so I'm going to start by putting in the lower bound for n and seeing what I get out. Then we'll do 6 times 5 to the 2 minus 1. 6 times 5 to the 3 minus 1. And then lastly, 6 times 5 to the 4 minus 1. I know to stop because my upper bound now is the same as this number there. So I have to figure out what each of these are worth. This is where it's important that you are careful about putting in your calculator. Don't do the 6 times 5 first because the exponent is on the 5 and not on the 6. And so you can't do the 6 first. So 1 minus 1 is 0. 5 to the 0 is actually 1. And so you get 6 times 1. And so you get 6. The next one is 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. 5 to the 1 is 5. So you get 6 times 5. And you get 30. The next one, 3 minus 1 is 2. So 5 to the 2 is 5 squared. That's 5 times 5. 5 squared is 25. So I get 6 times 25. And I get 150. 4 minus 1 is 3. 5 to the third is 125. So I get 6 times 125. And I get 750. So then I need to take all of these numbers, 6, 30, 150, and 750, and add them together with my calculator. So 750 plus 150 plus 30 plus 6 is 936. There's my answer. Okay, like we saw last lesson, it's important that we have a formula to work with for these problems. It's right here. As a reminder, G1 is going to be our first term. R, now this one is a little bit weird, but R is the common ratio, which is the thing you multiply by to get from step to step. And then N is the number of terms you're adding. So let's look at this. This says find S7, that means we're adding 7 terms. So N is 7 in this problem. What's our first term? G1, it's 1458. What is our common ratio? R is 2/3. So we have to kind of be thinking about what do we remember about our sequence formulas when we're doing this. Now let's use the formula to write out our answer. So we'll get Sn equals, well, G1 is 1458 times 1 minus, our R is 2/3 to the 7th. And I wanted to show you that the 2/3 is the only thing that the 7 is on. Everything else is not raised to the 7th power. Over 1 minus 2/3. Okay, now I would say this is a really good calculator problem, and I would not spend a lot of time trying to do this order of operations. I would just type it into Desmos exactly the way that I see it. So what do we get when we do that? Okay, so here's desmos.com/calculator. You're definitely welcome to use this here. I'm going to just type in, I'm going to do the dividing first to get the fraction, and then I just type what I see. So 1458 times 1 minus parentheses 2/3 to the 7th. Somehow my fraction got messed up. Then I'm just going to divide the whole thing by 1 minus 2/3. And there's my answer. I get 4,118. So then I'm just going to slide this down here and write my answer as 4,118. let's do the same exact thing here. Let's identify our G1, our R, and our N. G1 is our first term, and that's what happens when you put in 1 for N. So let's see what we get out. 1 minus 1 is 0. 5 to the 0 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2, so G1 is 2. Our R is what we're multiplying by each step, and that's the 5. That's the thing that's inside the parentheses. That's the thing that has the exponent on it. And then our upper bound is the number of terms we're adding, so N equals 7. So then let's use this formula. Let's rewrite the whole thing, and then we'll practice putting it into Desmos. So Sn equals 2 times 1 minus 5 to the 7th, all over 1 minus 5. Okay, so then I'm going to go to desmos.com/calculator. And I'm just going to type the whole thing in that I see there. So let's try the fraction again. So press the divide button to get a fraction, and then you can do 2 times 1 minus 5 to the 7th. And then on the bottom of the fraction, we write 1 minus 5. And there's our answer. We get 39,062. There it is. Okay, this question is a little bit different because we are just given the sequence and we don't have the sigma notation here, but it's really the same kind of question. It's really the same question that I'm asking you. And so we still need to identify G1, R, and N. So what is G1? It's the first term. So G1 is 2. What is the R? It's the thing you multiply by each step. And it looks like it's 2 in this problem also. N is the number of terms you're adding, and it says you're adding together 13 terms. So let's set up our formula, and then we'll use Desmos. One minus 2 to the 13th, all over 1 minus 2. Okay, so here we go. Two times 1 minus 2 to the 13th, all over 1 minus 2. 1 minus 2. There it is. Okay, so we get 16,382. On this slide, you have one to try by yourself first, and then I'll go through it. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so in this one, we see that G1 is what happens when you put 1 in for N, and we're going to get 5 out. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Negative 1 to the 0 is still positive 1, and then positive 1 times 5 is 5. What's our common ratio here? R is negative 1. It's the stuff in here. And the number of terms that we're adding together, N, is 18. It's the upper bound because the 1 is there. So we're adding up 18 terms together. So then our formula will look like this. Sn equals G1, which is 5, times 1 minus negative 1 to the 18th, all over 1 minus negative 1. So because the rate is negative, because the R is negative, this is going to be a little bit tricky to put into our calculator, but we'll do it. Let's see. Kind of put this in a bad spot, so hold on a second. Okay. 5 times 1 minus parentheses negative 1 to the 18th. There we go. Divided by 1 minus negative 1. There we go. What's our answer? Our answer is 0. That's super weird, right? It's possible. It can happen. Okay, one more for you to try without me first. And here I go. Okay, so G1 is our first term, and it's 65, 61. R, we're going to have to figure out. N, we know is 8. Okay, so what's R? Well, somehow when I take 65, 61, and I multiply it by R, I have to get 4,374, because that's the rule that I'm following. I'm multiplying by R. So I should be able to use algebra to get R by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 65, 61. And what do I get when I do that? So on the left side, I get R. And what happens when I do 4,374 divided by 6,561? We get 0.67, or 0.6 repeating. As a fraction, this is 2/3. And so I want to stay with the fraction because it's more comfortable for me. It's okay if you use the decimal, just make sure that you give me like 3 or 4 or 5 decimal places. Okay. So now our answer is going to be SN equals 6561 times 1 minus 2/3 to the 8 all over 1 minus 2/3. Okay, so in Desmos, okay, so then in Desmos, I know that I'm not going to be able to really see everything here. I think I can make this work. Okay, 65, 61 times 1 minus 2/3 to the 8 divided by 1 minus the fraction 2/3. There's our answer, 18,915. All right. Okay, so we are done now. When you finish this video, go back to the lesson assignment, and then I need you to click on the mastery check that is linked on the assessment box. And then once you finish that, you are done for the day.